Welcome back to The Intersection. This episode is called A Structural Matter. Those words came from the anthropologist William Stanner in 1968. He was referring to white Australia's act of forgetting its Aboriginal history, that it was not an accident but an intentional structural matter. We get a bit personal in this episode, reflecting on how, as white kids growing up in the 80s, our knowledge of Aboriginal and settler history was seriously limited. Music was one way in which we got educated, and we'll be looking at a couple of examples of how music helped in this education. So here it is, a structural matter. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners are advised that this episode may contain voices of people who have died. We have talked in previous episodes of The Intersection about how white Australia has frequently sought to bury or distract from its foundational story, namely, the invasion of Aboriginal lands and the injustices that First Nations people have faced as a result. For many of us white folk, this act of dodging the reality of our heritage has often just been through ignorance, and there were plenty of ways to fuel that ignorance. Anyone like me, who was a school student in the 1980s, can tell you that the time devoted to studying Aboriginal Australia was pathetic in every way. And as for illuminating specific details about white Australia's less than glorious birth, forget it. It was all Captain Cook, gold rushes and sheep. Thankfully for kids nowadays, this part of the curriculum has improved out of sight, hugely due to the hard work of Aboriginal activists and scholars. So some of us of a certain age had to get educated about this in other ways. Thankfully there were other ways to do this, and music played a part in that. For the 1980s generation, Aboriginal rock groups played a welcome role. No Fixed Address, Coloured Stone and the Western Desert bands such as Gurindji Band. Bit by bit this led to a reckoning for many of us in the audience. Today we are looking at a couple of examples of late 20th century Australian music culture which, whilst written by white people, nonetheless helped some of us, well me at least, come to a better reckoning with a true national history. One of these is a song, one of them a multimedia project, and both share the same title. Buried Country is a song by the Australian rock group Tactics, released in 1979. Its lyrics, rich in symbolism and imagery, nonetheless come back down to black and white. An Australia where a contemporary white society lived on top of an unacknowledged black history. It does not neatly fit as a protest song, but its message is definitely political without getting polemical. It was one of many great songs by a band who deserved, and still deserve, way more acclaim than they have received. This song also had an afterlife. In 2000, the writer Clinton Walker used the title, Buried Country, for his exploration into the Indigenous Australian music of the 20th century, and particularly country music. Buried Country, the book, is a classic and is possibly the best ever book on Australian music. It was accompanied by a CD and a documentary. It has since been revised and reissued and spawned a series of live concerts bearing that title. It brought to attention a lot of Indigenous artists who had been either utterly overlooked or forgotten in time. And of course, it asked why that forgetfulness and neglect had occurred. It opened a lot of eyes and ears. We'll talk more about it later, but now let's hear the Tactics song, Buried Country.
Memories fade a flower from a small bush. Birds flew high, carried away the weighted hour. A woman's voice caught on a stretched wire. Search for you, and when I came, away to seen through the hills of the steel headlights. country, buried country. Buried country, buried country. Black blood, the frozen ground. Black blood, the frozen ground.
Tactics were formed in Canberra in 1977. The nucleus was vocalist, songwriter, rhythm guitarist Dave Studdert and lead guitarist Angus Douglas. Steve Kilby, later the founder of The Church, was briefly their bass player. Soon enough the band relocated to Sydney. Tactics were an amazing band. Although associated with the punk and post-punk scenes, they really had their own sound. By no means avant-garde, but not familiar either. They were characterised by Studdert's frenetic rhythm guitar and high-pitched vocals, the staccato rhythm section, and the often psychedelic flourishes of lead guitar and keyboards over the top. Their influences were also unusual for that time. Arthur Lee, Syd Barrett, Lee Perry, and they didn't actually sound like any of them. The lyrics could seem obtuse, but there was a local feel to them. For instance, first single, Standing by the Window, was inspired by Aboriginal song cycles where, in Studdert's words, quote, the sentences describe situations without metaphors in simple descriptions which alter slightly and gradually over each sentence to build up an entire description. Tactics arrived in an incredibly vibrant Sydney live music scene of the late 70s, early 80s. The early stages of punk had passed, but what we can call post-punk was alive and well through bands like Void 465, The Thought Criminals and Secret Secret, among many others. This music had a place. It was a live music scene based around the Sydney CBD and the Inner East. Key venues were pubs and clubs like the Grand Hotel, Checkers, the Civic, French's, the Heritage, the Rex, the Sussex, Governor's Pleasure, Garibaldi's, the Unicorn, the Paddington Green, and that is only a sample of venues at that time. It was well before Sydney's Inner West and particularly Newtown took over as Sydney's music-centric areas. The first version of Buried Country came out on Tactics' first release, a self-financed 7-inch EP called Long Weekend in 1979. Good luck finding a copy. It recently sold online for over $700. The version you heard earlier is the second version of the song, taken from their brilliant debut album My Houdini, released in December 1980. The lyrics to Buried Country do not spell out the topic, but it is there in the very first line, Memories of Baited Flour. This references the action of early white settlers who would poison flour and leave it for Indigenous people to consume and usually die from. Then there is the repeated lyric of Black Blood on Frozen Ground. It's as if one can visualise massacres on a colonial frontier. The lyrics align with the post-punk aesthetic of symbolism and surrealism, gesturing at something far deeper and buried in the white subconscious. Tactics might have been the first white band to put such a reflection to vinyl, but away from music, such a thesis had been slowly gathering momentum. Famously, in 1968, anthropologist William Stanner, in a Boyer lecture, had spoken of the Great Australian Silence. In words that have influenced Australian historiography ever since, Stanner rejected the idea that such silence was simply an act of absent-mindedness and was in fact, quote, a structural matter, a view from a window which has been carefully placed to exclude a whole quadrant of the landscape. What may well have begun as a simple forgetting of other possible views turned under habit and over time into something like a cult of forgetfulness, practiced on a national scale. A few years later, art historian Bernard Smith, also in a Boyer lecture, stated that now that the, quote, locked cupboard of our history has been opened, the central problem for the integrity and authenticity of Australian culture was how to address it. And of course there was the work through the 70s of Indigenous writers such as Kevin Gilbert and Roberta Sykes, who made similar points in more emphatic style. So the sentiments in Dave Studdert's song Buried Country were certainly in the air by 1979. There is a lot more to the story of Tactics. They even reappeared with a new album in 2019. But for now we're going to leave them and switch to the story that came after their song Buried Country.
Oh, bugger me, Gurindji, me been down this country long time before Lord Rusty. All about land belonging to we. Poor bugger me, Gurindji. Poor bugger black fella this country, long time work, no wages we. Work for good old Lord Rusty, little bit flour to guarantee for Gurindji from Lord Rusty. Oh, poor bugger me.
Oh, bugger me, Gurindji. My name Vincent Lengiari. Me talk all about Gurindji. Dagorago place for we, home for we, Gurindji.
But poor bugger black fella this country, government boss him talk long we. Fill your house with electricity, but that wife he'll for can't you see. What a creek belong to Lord Rusty. Oh, poor bugger me.
As we said earlier in this episode, Clinton Walker's 2000 publication, Buried Country, might be the best music-related book ever published in Australia, and the accompanying album made it all the more vital. The unearthing of so many rare recordings, photos and stories was a feat in itself. Some of the interviewees were already elders, so getting their first-hand accounts documented was vital. Not all these artists were obscure by any means, but it is fair to say that at the time of publication, the careers of even the better-known artists, such as Jimmy Little, were underappreciated and underdocumented. Clinton Walker had been a music writer since the late 70s and was best known for his writings on the punk and post-punk era. His first book, 1982's Inner City Sound, is an amazing document of that era in Australia. As such, Walker was certainly familiar with Tactics and their song Buried Country, and hence the title seamlessly transitions from the early era of Walker's writing into this amazing study of Aboriginal country music.
In a sad and sorry state the day they brought me through that gate. I felt just like a bird in a great big cage. Then they put me in a wing where the lifers think they're king. If you're weak, you'll never live to see old age. Long Bay jail, you're cruel and bad. You have made sane men go mad. Some have even took their lives different times. But you won't do that to me. I'll still be sane when they set me free. And I pray to God, help me keep my mind. The screws slam doors in all the slots. He slips the bolts, snaps the locks. Some Kriens keep yelling out abuse at him. Then it was lonesome time again. I had no books, I had no pen. Waiting 16 hours to hear that big bell ring. Long Bay jail, you're cruel and bad. You have made sane men go mad. Some have even took their lives at different times. But you won't do that to me. I'll still be sane when they set me free. And I pray to God, help me keep my mind.
Why was country music so popular with Aboriginal people? Walker points out that its lyrical basis matched the storytelling and oral history traditions of many Indigenous cultures. As a guitar-based music, it was also very portable. For many rural Aboriginal people in the 20th century, it was also the music they were most likely to see and hear either on local radio or in concert. Some white Australian country artists, such as Tex Morton and Slim Dusty, regularly toured to very small, mainly Indigenous towns. Historian and musician Toby Martin adds that there was also an excitement and modernity attached to American country music's arrival in Australia, coinciding with the mid-century cultural turn towards America. Martin notes that American country music often addressed issues of community, working on the land, itinerant work, and the flip sides of homelessness and loneliness. These themes resonated with Aboriginal songwriters and audiences. As Indigenous musician Bob Randall says, quote, "Because we had so much loss, country music gave us something we could gain." We could not possibly do full justice to the Buried Country project other than to recommend anyone interested in Australian music at all should read the book and particularly listen to its 3 accompanying soundtrack albums. But we will be spotlighting a couple of artists featured in it.
Let me know you, let me show you. I can be so understanding, not the type who'd be demanding, baby. True. Can't you feel it? Don't conceal it. You can act so nice and gracious, other times you're so audacious. It's amazing. There's so many things I want you to tell. Give yourself time, it'll work out well if you let it. Let me know you, let me show you. Life's colorful and pretty. Stop drowning in self-pity, that's for losers. Can't you feel it? Don't conceal it. Many things you take for granted, then you feel so disenchanted, it confuses. Well, there's times I'm sure you feel so alone. Own little war won't be one on your own. I can help you. Let me know you, let me show you. Oh, my own true way of giving the love that you've been living without so long. Can't you feel it? Don't conceal it. Well, your body's for my wanting, but that won't solve the haunting of your mind. You're not that kind. Well, there's times I'm sure you feel so alone. Your own little war won't be one on your own. I can help you. Let me know you, let me show you. My own true way of giving the love that you've been living without so long. I can't feel it, don't conceal it. Body's for my wanting, but that won't solve the haunting of your mind. You're not that kind. Well, let me know you, and let me show you. Well, let me know you, babe. Let me show you, yeah, yeah, you're right. Just let me know you. Well, let me show you, and let me know you. Well, can't you feel it?
Vic Simms is a Bidjigal man from Sydney's La Perouse. He was in his early teens when he began performing in the late 50s, releasing a couple of singles a few years later and touring with the likes of Cole Joy, Johnny O'Keefe and Peter Allan. However, by 1973, in his late 20s, he was incarcerated in the Victorian-era Bathurst jail. Self-taught on guitar, he was heard playing his self-penned compositions by charity workers visiting the prison. Somehow, the Department of Corrective Services and RCA Records agreed to set up a recording of Vic Simms's songs. A session band was arranged, recording equipment was transferred in, and an album was recorded in the prison's dining hall in one afternoon in June 1973. Titled The Loner, it was released shortly after, and it is an overlooked classic Australian album. The style is more country-tinged rock with, as Clinton Walker notes, horn arrangements reminiscent of Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire. There is an immediacy about this collection that cuts through on first listening. On repeated listens, the depth of feeling, the sense of personal and cultural isolation leave as lasting an impression as any great rock and roll.
Stranger in my land, today to somewhere, no account, tomorrow something grand. I doubt if you'd agree with me, or if you'd understand, till that day for guys like me, I'm a stranger in my land. Well, forgive me if it seems as though, but I am not mistaken, 'cause I'm the one who you forgot after my land was taken. In early years we were put down, cast aside as vermin, women, men and kids shot down, then taped my Bible sermon. Well, don't try to understand me now, I've seen the sights that pain ya. Has it really changed for me since Roundup in Tasmania? I'm a stranger in my country, stranger in my land, today to somewhere, no account, tomorrow something grand. I doubt if you'd agree with me, or if you'd understand, till that day for guys like me, I'm a stranger in my land. Black is beautiful, I've heard it far and wide, man. Are you sincere in what you say? If not, please step aside then. This land is like a store-bought pie, and lots of people come, all to get themselves a slice, and I can't get a crumb. Well, the black Australian has his pride, his culture and his dream time. Is he to lose all this as well? I wonder in the meantime. I'm a stranger in my country, stranger in my land, today to somewhere, no account, tomorrow something grand. I doubt if you'd agree with me, if you'd understand, till that day for guys like me, I'm a stranger in my land. I'm a stranger in my land. I'm a stranger in my land.
Following the album's release, Vic Simms was allowed supervised release to perform at various concerts, including at the just-opened Sydney Opera House. But there was politics involved which was out of Vic's hands. The Department of Corrective Services wanted publicity out of the project as a demonstration that they were progressive and reform-minded. This was laughable because prison conditions in New South Wales at that time were notoriously brutal and soon to be exposed in a royal commission. Bathurst Jail itself was near destroyed by rioting prisoners some months after the loner was recorded. In Buried Country, Simms says, quote, "Corrective Services were getting the publicity and the pats on the back. I was getting praise from the highest quarters of Corrective Services, which caused the rest of the prison population to get pissed off. They thought I was making Corrective Services look good. It was really hard times." The album was poorly promoted, partly because Corrective Services would not allow RCA further access to Simms for interviews or filming. They'd got the publicity they wanted, and that was that. The loner sold poorly and was soon deleted. Finding a copy of it nowadays is like gold. It is sold for upwards $1,000. No one seems to know why it is that scarce, and there is a story that unsold copies may have been destroyed in the 70s. A classic album, it deserved much better. But the loner's reputation has built steadily. It got a CD release in 2013, so finally a lot of people got to hear it and become aware of its extraordinary story. Musician Luke Peacock assembled a group dubbed the Painted Ladies, which recorded a tribute album to Vic Simms, aided by the likes of Ed Cooper, Bunna Lorry and members of UMI and Powderfinger. And best of all, Uncle Vic Simms is still performing as of 2023.
Well, I can't see how a chick like you can feel lost and alone when there's people at your beck and call by picking up your phone. So don't you let them catch you crying on your Saturn either down. You just dry your eyes, throw away your disguise and come to our part of town. In your world of false Madonnas, and it's anybody's guess. You come here to try the friendship and the hopeful happiness.
Here's a song now, boy, fill your hearts with joy, and a sung by youngie Doug. This song, they say, will go a long way, 'cause they call it Cuttin a rug. Way up in Bree, they call it on the spree, in Bug it's the jitterbug. But Vulcania's got the best name of all, yes, we call it Cuttin a rug.
It took an English anthropology student to track down and record one of the real outliers of Australian music. In 1963, Jeremy Beckett, a then postgraduate student, travelled to Australia and out to Gurindji country in far western New South Wales, armed with a portable tape recorder to try and capture the songs of the mysterious Dougie Young. Word had spread about this Wilcannia-based singer-songwriter, but there had been no recorded evidence. Beckett was inspired by the Deep South field recordings of American musicologist Allan Lomax. He would later say of Australian academia at that time that, quote, nobody had any interest in musicology, certainly not this kind of music anyway.
Well, I was born in the scrub of my mind, on the river called the Barcoo. My parents left me when I was quite young to battle my own canoe. They took me along a Yandama station with a stock whip that tanned my hide. They threw me in the saddle of a bucking horse, that's how I learned to ride. Yes, I'm tall, dark and lean, every place I've been, the white man calls me Jack. It's no crime, I'm not ashamed, I was born with my skin so black. When it comes to riding rough horses, or working cattle, I'm mixed with the best. In the land where the crow flies backwards, and the pelican builds his nest.
Beckett got Dougie Young on tape. 6 of the songs ended up being released as an EP on the folk music label Wattle Records. It was called The Land Where the Crow Flies Backwards, and like Vic Simms' The Loner or Tactics' Long Weekend, good luck finding a copy. It was also the only Dougie Young recording released in his lifetime. Historian Toby Martin writes that, quote, Young's lyrics were almost exclusively about everyday life for his community and himself in and around Wilcannia. Claypan dances, droving work, drinking sprees, imprisonment, seasonal grape picking, chicken thieving and romantic dalliances. Clinton Walker describes the songs as, quote, brilliant, hilarious, but at the same time tragic. This is Dougie Young's genius, his gift for social realism, the ability to wring the last black laugh out of the most despairing situation.
Now they say it's a crime, drinking beer and wine will lead a good man astray. When it comes to grog, I'm a fair dinkum hog. I guess I was born that way. But I'll drink and roam till the cows come home if it will give my poor hearty. I don't care who knows, I work for my dough and I'll spend it as I please. I was cutting a rug, they threw me in a jug as the magistrate looked down. He said, youngie Doug, you're a wine-loving mug and you're a menace to the town. He said, I'll put you away in a cell you will stay until you learn some sense. Well, he cursed and cried, said my doggone hide wasn't worth 18 pence. I spent a day in jail and they paid my bail when they opened the big iron door. Then I shook my head as I sadly said, well, I'll never get drunk no more. Then I made a vow I'd give it up somehow, but as I strolled down the lane, I met a friend of mine who had a flagon of wine, so we turned it on again. People in this town that just run me down, they gave me a real bad name. They say I drink and fight, well that's quite alright, 'cause the other boys do the same. Now after I'm dead, they're gonna hang their heads and say I wasn't such a bad guy. They'll be feeling sad, well I'm gonna get mad if they gather round my grave and cry. 'Cause they say it's a crime, drinking beer and wine will lead a good man astray. When it comes to grog, I'm a fettigum hog. Well, I guess I was born that way. But I'll drink and roam till the cows come home if it will give my poor heart ease. I don't care who knows, I work for my dough and I'll spend it as I please. My name is Youngie Duck, I'm gonna cut a rug until the day I die.
The incessant references to drinking in Dougie Young's songs need to be seen in the context of Australia at the time they were written. Sales of alcohol to Aboriginal people were still illegal in 1963, but this did not stop publicans running a slow grog black market, quietly selling alcohol to Aboriginal people, usually at inflated prices. Local police would routinely arrest the black drinkers but rarely the white sellers. Alcohol, as referenced in the songs of Dougie Young, thus had a sense of anti-authoritarianism and resistance, although, of course, it came with some devastating consequences. If not for Jeremy Beckett and his tape recorder, it is unlikely the songs of Dougie Young would have been heard outside of the claypan dances held on the dry creek beds on the outskirts of Wilcannia. Who knows how many other great Aboriginal songwriters were never immortalised on tape. Buried Country, as a project, did not get its deserved respect until some years after its release. Clinton Walker writes of a situation around 2000 where, quote, the liberal aspirational middle class supported reconciliation, as did the cultural gatekeepers who gave positive discrimination towards Aboriginal arts. But the condition was that those Aboriginal arts had to fit into established white Western highbrow modes, and so that meant lots of paintings in galleries and plays and dance companies performing in legitimate theatres. Unquote. Needless to say, Aboriginal country music at that time did not fit the picture. Writer and musician Keith Glass, on reviewing Buried Country in 2000, said, quote, if the Chardonnay set stopped playing their copies of Buena Vista Social Club long enough, they might find something happening in their own backyard of at least the same interest and of more relevance to where this country has been and where it is headed. That Buried Country's popularity grew in recent years, Walker believes, was partly due to the worldwide interest in what could be called roots music. Country was undoubtedly a part of that, and Australia had this wonderful history of Aboriginal country music hidden in plain sight. In concluding this episode, let's go back to the beginning. White people, especially those of us of a certain age, have often claimed we didn't know about Aboriginal history generally, and specifically about the disgrace of this country's long white takeover. That time has clearly passed. Resources are here now for everyone to learn more about this. Whilst white musicians and writers such as those discussed in this episode were pivotal, for me, in bringing an historical understanding, there are now plenty more black voices to listen to, and they are getting louder. They will surely be the way of the future and a reimagined Australia. This story is no longer buried, it is alive and vital.
I am not a Ngarrindji woman, and I'm still here today to carry on our culture in the Ngarrindji woman business ways in our mother's name.
We will end this section with a track from 2015 called Crying for Country. It's by Kankawa Nagarra, also known as Olive Knight, an elder of the Walmajiri people of Western Australia. She featured on the vinyl release of Berry Country in 2018.
Sitting down here thinking about blood country. Sitting down here thinking about blood country. Something good way, love me. Something good way, love me. Rock and ganja, no good one, Mari, put away, love me. Grog and ganja, no good one, Mari, put away, love me. Man, I'm thinking about good way and play. Man, I'm thinking about good way and play. Grog and ganja, no good one, Mari, put away, love me. Grog and ganja, no good one, Mari, put away, love me. Mine, I'm thinking about good way and play. Mine, I'm thinking about good way and play. I gotta get up and go back love country. I gotta get up and go back love country. Not gonna let him buy rock and ganja. No good one, Mari, but wait, love me. Not gonna let him buy rock and ganja. No good one, Mari, but wait, love me. I gotta get up and go back love country. I gotta get up and go back love country. Not gonna let him buy rock and ganja. No good one, Mari, but wait, love me. Not gonna let him buy rock and ganja. No good one, Mari, but wait, love me. Not gonna let him buy rock and ganja. No good one, Mari, but wait, love me. Not gonna let him buy rock and ganja. No good one, Mari, but wait, love me. Not gonna let him buy rock and ganja. No good one, Mari, but wait, love me.
Thank you for listening to The Intersection. My name is Michael Fisher, production by Rob Marchenberg. You'll find a playlist of all the music in this episode in the show notes. We'd like to give special thanks to Eastside Radio, 89.7 FM. You can contact us via email at theintersection@eastsidefm.org. And don't forget to follow The Intersection on social media. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. Just search The Intersection _Eastside FM. The Intersection was recorded on Gadigal land. Sovereignty never ceded.